So, in our community, we all know the criminal justice system wrongfully imprisons people of color.
Yeah. True. Some people even say it's the modern day slavery.
Yeah, I mean, did y'all see the 13th? You know, the criminal justice system was basically, built off of slavery in America.
The lived experience is truly greater than any other statistic that we can give you. That's why we decided to talk to some previous felons who know the system all too well.
Starting with panel member 1.
Well, excuse me. At the age of 17, I was convicted of first-degree murder. I was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole with the additional sentence of 100 to 200 years that was to be served in hard labor and solitary confinement out of former Detroit Recorder's Court.
I'm panel member number 2. At the age of 16, I was convicted of first-degree premeditated murder, first-degree felony murder, armed robbery, assault with intent to rob while armed, and felony firearm. I was sentenced to life without parole. I served 23 years and was released 19 days ago.
Panel member number 3. I was convicted at the age of 19 of criminal sexual conduct in the first degree, given a sentence of 22 to 50 years. I did 18 years off of that sentence and have been back in society for a decade now.
I am panel member number 4, and I was convicted at the time I was in college on scholarship playing college football with a bright career ahead of me, along with getting my degree on going to the NFL. And I was convicted of first-degree rape, and I got sentenced to 10 years. I done 4.5 years on that sentence, and back at that time, I got released, but it cost me $20 million minimum because I was a heralded possible NFL player. And I've been back in society for over 2 decades or 3 decades now, but the impact of it is still reigns fresh in my mind.
You may wonder when racism first comes into play for an offender in the criminal justice system. We asked the guys when they first experienced it, and the results were shocking.
I'm panel member number 4. I was in a very high-profile environment, college football, very high-profile team, and a part of the country where it was very racist, still very racist. Tried to cover your eyes with it, but it was very racist. Ended up, because of playing football, wasn't really arrested, was told to come and turn myself in, but first was harassed vigorously on coming in to tell a story or give a statement on someone else. Was told and called just vigorously a lot of times that, well, if you didn't do nothing and you don't have anything to hide, come in and give a statement and a written statement and sign it and tell your side of it. Other than that, we got to assume that you did it. And if you don't report in on this day, come turn yourself in, then we're going to come and get you and make it a high profile. It was not nothing where you couldn't make it a high profile, because on that day, CNN, Sports Illustrated, all of the top news people was there, including Dan Rather. So you get in front of the camera and you're there and you're handcuffed and you're getting ready to go through an arraignment. So mindset is in a whole different place. How am I going to tell my family this, or how am I going to report this, tell them what's going on before it get in the media, news media. It'll get all across the country. So that's what my thoughts was in the first thing, but it still end up getting there because you have family all over the country, and it hits those news medias first, and then they all calling, and then your immediate family is upset and afraid. Don't know what's going on because you're away from home by yourself on scholarship in college, and they think you doing really well and doing what you're supposed to do, and now you hooked up into this mess.
I experienced the racism from both sides, amongst people who are black as well as the people who are white.
Say your panel member.
Again, panel member number 3 speaking. The issue that I had to start with the racism in regards to the blacks, it's not always looked at as racism. A lot of times people refer to it as hate. But because I was a young black person in school and doing well, I fell victim of some more people who looked like me that had a fear factor of seeing me succeed. That was one of the preludes that landed me in the penitentiary, or should I say in the court system to start, which is where I then had to deal with the racism amongst white people, people who manufactured evidence, who came up with evidence that actually didn't exist. But during the time of my arrest, going back to the late 80s, they didn't have what we know now as DNA testing or DNA sampling. So everything was pretty much predicated off blood serums. So when you have no physical evidence in regards to body fluids, pubic hairs, and things like that, my case basically came down to what was a testimony. But because these individuals who happen to be white people, going from a judge to a prosecutor, who, even if you ask me, a defense attorney that I really had no business putting my trust and faith in, laid out tracks that were clearly obvious for me to be derailed and offset. So I landed in the penitentiary having to deal with, like I said, racism from the judicial system, as well as from a body of peers that just simply did not want to see someone who was focused and never had any trouble or brushes with the law fall short of having success.
Panel member number 2 speaking. We talking about institutional racism, right? Like, it's even before the arrest. Like, we dealing with something that's cultural and something that's a societal issue. Like, I'm a firm believer that criminality is an institution. So when you have neighborhoods that's where the public school system is poor, and you have police officers who surround the school and who monitor the school and who are in it, and then you have this same neighborhood that's drug infested. You got gangs, you got murder, you got all of these criminal activities that's going on. That's definitely setting a system in place that the percentages for especially us young black males, we gonna be arrested 75% more than a European child would in their community. So the statistics already show that where you come from, the environment that you born in, you destined to at least be arrested, if not incarcerated. So that's like to give an overview of what we actually talking about outside of just our own individual circumstances. But like with me, I was 16 years old when I was arrested. So I didn't know what was going on. Like, I didn't know who I could trust, who to talk to. That me coming from where I came from, I knew the rule, like, you don't say a word. So it was like, okay, I didn't even trust my attorney enough to speak with him. But it was like, this was a Caucasian attorney who visited me one time. I'm fighting for my life, facing a murder charge. And he comes into the Wayne County Juvenile Detention Facility to visit me one time. But I see European juveniles who are there, who their attorneys come see them weekly. So I'm looking like, and I'm asking him, like, that's your attorney? He like, yeah, that's my attorney. Like, I thought that was your family as often as he coming to see you. So, like, in my adolescent mind, I didn't really know what was going on, but as I look back at that in hindsight, I can see the disparity right there. And that's part of that institutional racism.
Excuse me, I'm panel member 1. I just kind of want to piggyback on a good point that you made as far as what this topic is about, being institutionalized. And being institutionalized is a mindset. And you can be institutionalized if you're in the service, if you've been in the service. It's just the way that you think, which ultimately is dictated on how you act. So at the time in which my offense was committed, we're talking about, this is like in the crack era. And you had a lot of young people who were handling guns, handling a lot of money, nice cars, fancy clothes. These are just a lot of things that were going on. And it had gotten our city of Detroit really like out of hand. So basically, as young people were committing these crimes, me in particular, it didn't matter that what the circumstances were. In their mind, it was like, we're going to cause a war out on all of these young black males in the city of Detroit. And that's basically what happened with me. I was a first-time offender. And that's what they did. And as I just said in the opening, I was sentenced to my secondary charge. I was actually given by a white judge who I guess I'll discuss later on in our discussion. He sentenced a large number of young black males to life without the possibility of parole. But he also attached to my sentence a 100 to 200-year sentence to be served in hard labor and solitary confinement. And he was asked, basically, it seemed like you were showboating when you gave him his sentence. And he said, well, if me sentencing this young man who was on, again, I was only 17 years old, if me sentencing this young man to life without the possibility of parole and a 102-year sentence is going to prevent another juvenile from catching a case or committing a crime, then that's the sentence that I'm gonna give him. So again, we look at it as it's a mindset. The officers, when they came to arrest me, they were at the scene of the crime. They interviewed witnesses who were there. They knew all of the circumstances of the case, where it was just two groups of immature adolescents who committed this crime. But again, their mindset was, we need to get control over our city. So what we're going to do, we're going to make examples out of everybody that get caught up in these cases. So again, we're talking about a mindset. Again, and it didn't matter that, again, this was my first offense, that the person whose life was taken didn't have anything to do with the actual crime. And everything warranted a lesser charge and things of that nature. All of those things were just thrown out of the window. It's like, listen, we got these 3 young black males out here, and we about to make an example out of y'all.
Public defenders are given a somewhat impossible workload to balance, but these are often the only defenders that these people of color can afford. We asked how they have seen racism during the court proceedings, and their answers were harsh yet believable.
Yes, I'm panel number 4, and I was convicted of first-degree rape, and from on a college campus. I was away at college playing college football, and during my court proceedings, everything became racial. Had a white attorney. The attorney would bring his kids to court in the morning every day, and before court, he would let his kids sit on my lap and play with me just to show that I wasn't no predator or I wasn't no dangerous person, because the first thing they do is make you out to be some type of menace to society, or you John Wayne Gacy or something. And again, like panel member number one just said, it was my first offense, the first time ever being in trouble, period. But I was away from home a long way by myself at college on scholarship playing football. and just emerged into this situation where if it wasn't white, it wasn't right, and if you try to convince of anything differently, you would be you would either be crossed out or they would make it hard for you to get to where you want to go. And during the court proceedings, it was just everything was continuous, made a white and black thing. Even the victim said, this person tried to help me. They gave me a blanket or whatever, and they still made it a black and white thing. Or why didn't you call the police? Or why didn't you do this or that? You know, and you know those are questions when you of that age. I think I was in my going into almost my third year. I was on my second year out of high school in college, so you know, a sophomore, and then you know, and you're like, what the, you know what I mean? What's right. Going on? You know, you thinking you heralded it on your way to doing really big things, and then boom, it come to a crash stop. And not only are you dealing with that, you're dealing with racism. You know, it was so bad to the fact that I had a white friend I was really close friends with that played basketball, and he had a European girlfriend, and she was in law school at the school, and she came to me and hugged me after one day of court and said, you are being railroaded and the attorney is in on it, and it ain't nothing you can do about it unless you fire him and try to get you some help. But I was from Detroit, already had something against me because I'm from Detroit, and you know, was always taught, you know, you might not be clean as Theo Huxtable on the Cosby Show, but always be a pretty good guy. That's what my dad always taught and instilled in me. He didn't come up about saying, don't mess up my name or nothing, but he's a hard worker and stuff. But he said, you ain't got to be clean as Theo Huxtable on the Cosby Show, but be a pretty good guy. And that's what I always tried to be. But all of that get taken away from you, and once you get in their eye and get arrested or get even made to be involved in anything, all of that's out of the door. They build you up to be the biggest monster because that white district attorney is trying to, especially if it's a voting year, he's trying to make an example out of you and try to cause the most harm to you and everything. I was charged with first-degree rape and giving a minor, serving a minor liquor, and I didn't even drink. So how am I serving? You know, or he was the oldest, so you're guilty. Prove that you didn't do it. So that's how it is. And unless you got some money, and you got, you know, he's gone and passed away now, but unless you can resurrect Johnny Cochran, you in trouble.
Right. And this is, you know, again, being panel member number 3, this is how the system actually works against black men, not just here in Detroit, Michigan, but in America as a whole. Because just like panel member number 4 said, just like panel member number 1 said, people get in trouble with the law, innocent or guilty. They get in trouble and they find themselves having to fight their way out of something much stronger than a paper bag. That's called the judicial system. And even when it's your first time in the system, and I'm not using that as a platform to go somewhere else, but my point is, you can be squeaky clean, never have any brushes and run-ins with the law. The majority of those conversations that take place once they get you locked in those interrogation rooms pretty much is, none of you are innocent. None of you are as clean as this computer might be showing me. So what is it that you've already done that we just simply haven't caught you for?
Right. That's right.
So there's already an assumption of guilt as soon as you are detained. There's an assumption of guilt from the very moment that you have an encounter simply because you're black. There have been many of it, and everyone sitting in this round table can attest to this. We've all, along our journeys, have crossed paths with individuals that have letter for letter the same exact charges, but didn't have to deal with the persecution and the ridicule, not to mention the sentences that we all did. You are looking at close to 500 years of jail time that had been given out at this table alone. You tell me where's the balance. The system, from the very beginning, is predicated on eliminating as many black males from society, whether they're black people who may be doing some things that they shouldn't be doing, or those who are striving to persevere and succeed. People who are striving to make a difference. They really don't care. And as a matter of fact, those who are in college dorm rooms, those who are in certain trade schools trying to get better, those are the ones they really want to clip first, because those are the threats. Those are the people that can come out in society and make a difference. So those are the people that they feel threatened by, not necessarily the brothers that's not doing right. But the point of the matter is, it's almost, an engineered genocide, because like one of the panel members say, they put a lot of things and funnel them into our communities as pitfalls and trapdoors for us to fall victim to.
In America, African Americans are incarcerated at more than 5 times the rate of whites, which is outrageous. This makes each of them another statistic in the United States criminal justice system. African Americans and Hispanic people make up 32% of the United States population, but 56% of the prison population. Where's the balance? Next, we will have the guys tell their stories of how they have experienced racism while in prison.
The experience that I had with racism within the system, it's real easy one to explain. I don't want to contradict myself by saying, making it clear of where I'm going. At least in Michigan, the MDOC is predominantly black by a large number. So within the gates and the walls that make up the system itself, the majority of the time when you are in the housing units or outside on the yard, 9 times out of 10, black is what you see. So it's not necessarily, we're at a disadvantage amongst the rest of the population. The problem comes into play because the guards / officers who are employed by the Michigan Department of Corrections are the majority in regards to race. They are first, second, third generation families. This is what they do. So granddad gets a job, gets his son pulled into the system, then the grandson gets pulled in. So the entire department is a generation of families amongst families. And because they know and understand that the black inmate is more dominant than the white inmates strictly by numbers, the racism comes into play because they want to balance the playing field, which makes what we refer to as gelling that much harder. You see this in daily activity just based on what they consider the random shakedowns. Anytime you step outside the housing unit, it could be a summer day at 80 degrees outside, and I'm wearing shorts and a t-shirt, and you'll stop me to do shakedowns and wave wands across me and, have me stretched out on the middle of the yard. But a white guy can come walking by at the same time at 80-degree weathers with a winter coat on, and he'll pass right by me and nothing is said. So the perception, for the black man who's in prison clearly can see that there's a disparity between who gets harassed and who doesn't. Even when they come into your cells and do these random shakedowns and, they want to go through all your property. And, I've had experiences as to where store goods are purchased and ripped open and just, dumped on the floor just on the strength of they have the right to get up under your skin and piss you off. And at the end of the day, if you are somebody who's trying to get out of the system, even though it may not seem like, there's a date waiting for you. You have people who still refuse to give up a fight, but these are the types of things that you have to stomach. They have a procedure that you can go through in regards to writing grievances and filing complaints, but it falls on deaf ears because at the end of the day, by the time it moves up the pedestrian channel of the powers that be, it ends up getting brushed over anyway. So we end up being inconvenienced, we end up being harassed, and it's always by those first, second, and third generation of people who are on the surface low-key by their words. Not too many of them. You have some, but not too many of them gonna call you a nigga to your face. But it does happen. But just based on their actions alone, that's a springboard into harassment. It's clear where they stand in regards to black and white. And it's one of the hardest things to deal with because you have to either A, swallow a very tough pill without water, or B, throw caution to the wind just to try and prove a point of your manhood. And to be honest, it's not a right or wrong answer. It's more so of what are you willing to sacrifice? And for the people that's sitting around this table, if you have any type of family that depend on you, any type of support where people are spending their time, money, and energy trying to make your sentence as soft as can be in regards to knowing you are loved, a lot of times we don't want to sacrifice that. So we have to bite blood out of our tongue and keep our hands tucked in our pocket because you don't want to add to a label that's already been given to you of being an animal. They're out of control because as soon as you jump on one of them, it's, see, we told you they're not ready. So you have to stomach a whole lot of injustice just by the officers themselves. They had nothing to do with the court system, but we're still mistreated. We're still taken advantage of, and there is a psychological / mental abuse that you have to surpass that can only come from an inner strength that's already implanted. This is not something that's learned. You can learn what to do and what not to do, but the strength part itself only comes to the strongest people who refuse to lose. Because once you are inside the system, you're going to be a victim of the first, second, and third generation racists.
Panel member number one speaking. That's a really good point on generational connection as far as how you may, they have the same names, look alike, everything. You may see a grandfather, and you'll see a father, and you'll see the father's two brothers, then all of their children, work inside of the prison as well. So, excellent point you made. Seeing how, like, in the state of Michigan, the further that you get up north, the more white people that you see. When you're down in the southern part of the state, you may see more blacks or Latinos, whatever, that work inside of the Michigan Department of Corrections. But the further north you get, especially like, again, when I went to prison, again, I served almost close to 32 years, okay? They didn't have all of these facilities like they have now. They call them housing complexes or whatever. They just had it was just a few prisons, man, that you can go to. So basically, these people who were never around black people, okay, only thing they seen is what they saw on TV. And you know how the media will portray black people, okay? So they haven't had any experiences with black people. So that institutionalized mindset, they're bringing into the facilities already because they haven't been around black people. Then you have to go through they had to go through the academy, okay? And when they have to go through the academy, they're telling these people when they working in there, look, don't watch those black guys. They're gonna be predators, they're gonna steal, they're gonna be volatile, they're gonna be assaultive, they're gonna lie, they're gonna be, they're just gonna be predators. They're gonna have predatory behavior. This is what they'll say. And it wasn't until, for some of us who happen to be either intellectually gifted or athletically gifted, and all of us can speak to this at some point, being inside. I remember officers used to bet when we used to have football games. and baseball games with other officers in the unit that were in other units. Our unit is about to play this unit. Okay, so and some of these officers were white, but it wasn't until they got to know us a little bit, or even for some of them that got to know us, they still kind of carried that same mindset. But it's like, okay, well, he's a really good athlete in our unit, so I'm not gonna write him a major ticket. I just write him a minor ticket. You know, it's I'm not gonna do that. Or he's still yeah. So we're gonna let this happen. I mean, sometimes the tickets, and we all know how the kangaroo courts go. You get a ticket run on you, majority of the time you get found guilty of the ticket.
And they take some of your time.
They're taking the time away from you. So again, the mindset that they have when they see black males, as panel member number 3 we just explained, and we can be walking all going to child. Again, I got on shorts, a t-shirt, loose fitting clothes, whatever I have on, you're gonna stop and pull me over. But another person is walking past, a white person in particular. He has a jacket on, it's late, and got on pants, when everybody else got on, shorts, and you're gonna just let him walk right past. You won't say anything to him. So again, we're talking about a mindset that's inside of that prison where you done experienced it in the courts. Now you're going right into prison. And some of us, unfortunately, we never learn how to maneuver around it. We get so scarred by those first experiences, especially, again, when I unfortunately came to prison. It's like, again, you didn't have many facilities you can go to with the centers that are here. So you either had to just continue to fight these people, or you had to find a way to think and maneuver around them. And again, if you didn't have a certain gift, again, intellectually, athletically, or you was going to be like a company man, a brown nose around them. Once you become that type of person, they may let up off of you then. But again, you don't compromise your integrity at that point. So,
panel member number 4, my biggest experience was first coming in and getting dressed out in clothing. And the man in the clothing thing said, "Yeah, boy, you ain't at that college no more, nigga. So you got to do what we say do or else." And I looked at him. I said, "Wow, for real?" And some security guards came and got me and said, "The warden want to see you." And I said, "Yeah, Bernard, it seemed like you got a problem already." I said, "Nah, I don't have no problem." I said, "You won't have no problem out of me unless somebody mess with me. But if somebody mess with me, you gonna know you got a problem. Because I'm gonna do what I gotta do to survive." And I said, "I don't belong here, but I'm smart enough to know that if it's a way in, it's a way out."
Right.
So what panel member number 1 said, I used what I had after I got over the shock. You go through that period of shock and you just in a dark place. You don't want to talk to nobody or nothing. You only want to talk to your parent or somebody that's really, really close you can trust. And they listening in on that. So you in a place, but once you get that slap upside your head by God or whatever being that you believe in that tell you, oh, so you just go give up. If it's a way in, it's a way out. So I used my talent playing football, basketball, softball, running, and everything I could. I took every possible class that I could take that made sure that I got some days and kept up with my time sheets and all of that. People don't understand that's a big day inside a prison, getting your time sheet. Because unless you just off the chart, it ain't no way you ever going nowhere, because your numbers gonna look crazy, but you got to keep up with it. They'll play you on that too if you don't keep up with your days. But after I was asked about the problem and the guy calling me boy and nigga, they never did nothing but asked me, "You want to file a lawsuit on them?" I'm in here and I don't even believe I belong here. And they already, you talking about filing a lawsuit. Like, man, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Right.
Just leave me alone, my man.
Right.
So I just want to go on about my business and keep it moving. Because once one have it in for you, They all got it in for you. And all of them in cahoots together until they see you around and see what type of person you really are. And, you know, you'll have maybe one that just a little bit of increment of that hope, or that one might say, damn, well, maybe that person, he ain't that person or whatever. And they start treating you with a little bit of dignity and respect when they by themselves, unless they see some of them around. And then they get up against the wall or do something like that. Or get into your place, we shaking you down. So it's, you know, it's just so, the balance of it is so far leaned over to on the racism toward blacks, because family members, everybody white. And the blacks that work there, they just trying to come to work and get their check and get on. Or move on to promotion or whatever they trying to do. And they keep it moving. They don't want no trouble. But when you're an officer, anything like that, your number gonna be called. You can't get around it. It's gonna be a fight, somebody gonna be stabbing somebody gonna hit with a baseball bat, and you gonna have to step in and break it up. And it might be a black and a white. What you gonna do? So you just gotta try to keep your nose clean and persevere and keep dealing with it in a certain manner and keep on moving. But if they want you, they can get you. They can stash stuff on you. You can't be no person like panel number 1 said, and number 3, you can't mouth off at them or none of that. They'll try to figure out a way to keep you there. You can get right up and they'll take 365 days from you. That's a year. And then you gotta wait 2 years before you can file some paperwork to get it back. So, you know, the best thing you can say is don't get into it, but it's in our face every day.
One of the biggest / most humiliating experience that I've had during the time that I've been in the system, and just a lot of my time when I was incarcerated was done with panel member number 1. And we used to frequent the visiting room a lot because we did have a support system in regards to our family. And a lot of times when the visiting hours would come to an end and all of the visitors left the visiting room first, and then the convicts had to go out one by one and go into what's called a shakedown room. And in the shakedown room, the rule was we had to completely disrobe so they can make certain that we were not trying to smuggle any contraband back into the facility. But it was always highlighted and noticed that if there was a white prisoner that went across to go into the shakedown room, you're talking about going in, door closed, this guy is in and out in like 90 seconds flat. 90 seconds. But every time a black guy will go into the shakedown room, you talking about 5, 6, 7, 8 minute shakedown. Why?
Easy.
Because you had to completely disrobe, come out of your drawers, come out of your socks, take all of your clothes off. They wanted you to lift your testicles so they can look up underneath. You had to turn around and bend over and spread your buttocks so they could ensure that you're not trying to smuggle anything back into the facility. And clearly, these 3, 4 white guys that just went out here before me didn't go through all of this, because there's no way they could have came out of here that fast. And all you can do is muster it, because the officers that work in the visiting room, they're regulars. They know who has people who come up and visit them on a norm. But the very first time you refuse or you say I'm not going to do it, then you're restricted from your visits. So you can't see your mother who's sick and just got up enough energy to come visit you that day. If you're fortunate enough to have a wife or a girlfriend, she's froze out from coming to see you because you refuse to be shaken down.
And you're going to segregation.
You know, so this is another one of the biases that we had to deal with and try and keep our mental perspective on the prize, because, you know, it was clearly an unlevel playing field. But these are the type of institutional racist examples that were a norm. And again, you can try and complain and write grievances and move up the chain of command, and it always fell on deaf ears.
Appealing a case is a process that often keeps victims of the injustice of the criminal justice system in jail. These victims often have to do the work of attorneys in order to properly appeal their case. Even when they get an attorney, the attorney tends to neglect the individual. This is outrageous. Our interviewees tell their story of their experience with appealing their cases.
Panel member number 2, speaking for me, like financially, I was unable to obtain counsel to represent me in an appeals process. So I had to go to the library myself and try to learn this. And again, as a 16-year-old, I didn't even have a high school education. And here it is, I'm trying to study law, which law students go to school for 4 to 6, maybe 8 years. But I'm in here trying to fight for my life. And I'm with other young black men who are similarly situated, and we trying to collectively come up with issues that could possibly get us out of here. So, I mean, if that ain't racism, like, if that ain't institutional, I don't know what else is.
I did appeal my case, and the short version of it is that one of the main things that I knew would help me was to have a paid attorney pull my evidence tags from when I first got arrested. Like I said at the beginning of the seminar, when I went to prison, they did not have DNA testing. That was not introduced until the spring of 1996. Once they introduced DNA testing, I knew, locked, loaded, I was going home. When the attorney filed a petition to the courts to have my rape kit pulled, there was a delay for 4 months before they finally reported back to the courts that the Detroit Crime Lab lost my evidence tags and they couldn't find them. My judge at the time, my appeal judge, smelled a rat, according to her words on record. She felt like it was bogus, according to her words on record. And she had every mindset to throw the case out and dismiss it right there on the spot. But no judge likes to be reprimanded by a court even higher than them. And she knew that if she was to release me, the prosecutor could file a grievance to have me arrested probably within 7 to 10 days, because on the appeal process, the burden of proof falls on the defendant. And you have to, at that point, prove your innocence. And my argument was, how can I prove my innocence if the police are in charge of the evidence tags that I need? So the appeal process has a tendency to be bogus and a failure just the same. Because again, like panel member number 4 said earlier, everybody is in bed with everybody. All the corrections officers are in bed, the judge is going out to play golf with the attorneys, and everybody's friends. So to keep what had the potential to be a very large lawsuit against the city and saving them some money, because clearly those evidence tags could have exonerated me completely. But the Detroit Crime Lab lost it. So there's breaks in the system at every level. And that's my personal experience with it.
Panel member number 4. The point that our other 3 panel members made is monumental, but this is right here gonna take the whole cake. My defense attorney, first of all, before I even get convicted, worked for the district attorney office. So I don't have a chance in hell, excuse my language. Because you think he go present, every time I asked him to present something in my favor, I'm not doing that, you do it. Then it was a thing about whether I should go on the stand and speak, because they got to prove that I'm guilty. He still made me go on the stand, but I'm young, don't know, family members don't know, because nobody never been in trouble. Then when it gets to the appeal process, they all in cahoots with that. Had money, I was out of state, but people that knew me here, NFL, everybody, attorneys offered to help. They wouldn't even let an attorney come from Michigan. If you come from Michigan to to represent somebody somewhere else, you got to file a petition to be given permission to study law right there in the do law in that state. And if they deny you, that is what it. They already said we denying whoever come. He in our kangaroo court, and they told me no, he'll never get an appeal. His appeal going through, and by the time his appeal get out, he gonna be out. Then after I got out, I called back and actually had a friend that was in school and played ball and was on scholarship with me. He was an attorney in that city and state, and had him go so I could get the stuff you can get expunged. They told him they'll never expunge his. He ain't from here. He ain't got nothing coming. So what money gonna save you there unless I hit the big game and win $1 billion and I go get a dream team? You don't have a chance. So their attitude is, well, if you don't get in no trouble, you ain't got to worry about it. Well, it's nobody's intention to get in trouble, because trouble is easy to get into and hard to get out of.
I had, during the course of me appealing my case, I had some successes. The 200-year sentence that I received, I went back and re-sentenced on that. The courts looked at it and they changed the whole law on this specific judge that I had. Okay, it was just like, this is outrageous. You can't give anybody these type of sentences. It's impossible to serve. We don't know what's your angle, why you was doing this, so they say. But we all know why they did it. But again, clearly from looking and reading my transcripts, you can see how confrontational my judge was towards my counsel and myself. Even with me, like yourself, youngster, I don't have a law degree, but I knew when I read my transcripts, I knew that something wasn't right. Okay, so I read this information. I went to the law library. I got cases. I typed the cases out. Again, I typed the cases out outside of the margin. I couldn't believe that these words were saying exactly what happened in my case. Okay, and I gave these things to my attorney at the time, my appellate attorney, who was white. Okay, years later, after my appeal was denied, in part, I filed the issue against this attorney. When I took him back down to court to explain why he clearly didn't file issues against my trial judge, this attorney, and this is what got me my action, this white attorney told me that he didn't want to file an issue against my judge. He actually said this on record. He said, I didn't want to file an issue against this judge because I didn't want the other judges to be mad at me. That's exactly what he said. It was a loud sigh out in the whole courtroom.
That's no good.
And he lied. He tried to lie, which ended up helping me. He said that me or my family members, never told him to file this issue. Okay? So again, you got a young black male telling, quote unquote, an experienced white appellate attorney as to what he should file. He's like, no, I'm not going to file it. He said, I never sent him a letter. I got the letter right here. When he presents he go into the file, this is like 10 years later, he goes into the file and they get the letter. They admit the letter into the record. Like, he did tell you to file this issue against him. So that's what got it for me. Now again, the whole appeal process is a whole other topic and seminar or dialogue that we can have again. But in short, these things, cases get caught up, man. It's like if all of us have experienced the same thing, and they say, and I say all of us, I mean the four of us, and I'm the first person to file this issue, it can exonerate, again, all three of us. So to prevent that from happening, what they'll do, they'll just deny mine. When they deny mine, they don't have nothing else coming. Mm-hmm. And that's basically what happened.
Not only did these men share their lived experience with us while in jail, while getting arrested, and also while in court, but they also gave us some little bits and pieces of advice that we should live by. Here are a couple clips of them giving said advice.
But because of who you are and the situations that y'all in, y'all definitely got targets on y'all. Y'all young black athletes. Y'all got people that's preying on y'all right now, hoping that you fall victim to the thinking that I gotta make this money. So they'll come and try to make money off of you, but won't try to make money with you. That's a system in itself that's racist and hateful and spiteful. They don't really care about your well-being. They just look at you as a commodity. The same way when they put us inside a prison, we just numbers now. They don't look at us like we human beings. They dehumanize us in order to enforce arbitrary policies, cruel and unusual punishment. That's what they'll do to you if you're not mindful of the decisions that you're making for yourselves.
And you have to be, panel member number 4, you have to be real careful of your circle and surroundings at school and outside of school.
Absolutely.
When it's a situation and sometime and you might not have a ride to go to this place, that means you ain't supposed to be there. Don't force it. They got all type of ways you can get around now, and I know we're winding down. I'm gonna say this and then I'm gonna be quiet. You know, with Uber and all this other different stuff, you ain't gotta be at everything. Choose your places and choose who you deal with and have your own mindset. Don't be a go along to get along person, because you're going to have some people that's hypocrites that try to get you to go along with their shenanigans and nonsense that'll get you put out of school, not out of school, put out of the state you in school at.
Once you become a part of the criminal justice system, and like panel member number 4 said, y'all have every opportunity right now to make a difference, not just in y'all lives, but in your community's lives. Because some of these things that we telling y'all right now, you can't get this just like out of a book. You're not gonna get it out of a book. You know, ain't nobody telling you this. These are really jewels that we giving y'all. Again, nobody's glorifying any of these things, but I'm saying these experiences are real. And y'all supposed to take these things we telling y'all right now and apply them to your life right now. It's just not just for school. It's just not just for this project. You know, because this is real life. This is how it really go down.
And you know what he's saying? He's telling y'all, don't get in it, because they trade them attorneys, the lawyers, the judges, the clerks, the people in the prison, work in the prison, the wardens and all of them. All they do is trade favors for people's life. It's a game to them.
Institutionalized complexes.
It's a game. They trade favors for people's lives. You might have this attorney that they say, oh, this guy can get you this. They trading favors for people's lives or money.